Good afternoon, everyone. It is 6 o'clock on the dot. And in good old project management fashion, we start on time and we end on time. So I'd like to personally welcome each of you to this meetup. It is great to have you here. And my name is Andrea Pratt-Smith. I am the founder of the Bahamas Project Management Community. Along with my team, we are here to make sure that you have an enjoyable session. Joining us as our speaker is Dr. Rodney Smith, president of the University of the Bahamas. But before we get going, we would like to open up in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father God, we thank you for yet another opportunity to come before you as a Bahamas Project Management Community. Lord, we thank you for the opportunities and the doors that you have opened for us. We ask that you will continue to order our steps, guide, lead, and protect us. Lord, we know that everything that we do is for your honor and your glory. We ask that you would continue to use us as your willing vessels to spread the message of your kingdom as we empower ourselves and our members and followers to upskill and to become better versions of themselves. Lord, we thank you for every blessing that you've bestowed upon us. And we ask that you would continue to give us grace and favor beyond measure. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Omar, icebreakers.
Yes, ma'am. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Right now, if it's the first time that you are visiting us, please let us know where you are joining us, and please put that in the chat. I just added a comment there, but please, we would like to know where you are joining us tonight.
Activity on the chat.
No activity.
So if you want to come off mute and say if this is your first time, how did you hear about us? Where are you joining us from? That's fine just as well. Okay, we're gonna start calling on names. This is not one of those groups where you stay hidden behind a picture and don't speak. We're very interactive. We would like to engage with you. Come off camera, let us know where are you from. If this is your first time joining us.
I'll take a stab at it. I'm Michael Dick.
Thank you.
And I came because of my good friend, Dr. Rodney Smith. I saw his invite and I decided I would definitely participate. And I see you've started a project management group, which is good. Because I too am a project manager and I'm curious to see who else are project managers.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Anyone else want to be brave tonight? Come off camera. Our icebreakers is not breaking the ice.
Good evening, everyone. Rodney here. I would have joined your first, or well, I would have done a meetup you did, I think about maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago with Simone Bowe. I really enjoyed it. And I liked the topic or the discussion that was going to be had for this meetup. So I decided to join again. So hopefully it's an interesting session.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for joining us again.
No problem.
All right, we have a few more minutes for our icebreaker session. We would like to get to know you.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Generous, and I would like to say thank you for inviting me. I saw the advertisement on Facebook, I think it was, and I read it and researched, and I was a little interested in it. So I said, let me sign up and join. I got a call giving me some information, and I felt like, you know, coming and joining would make me more knowledgeable with this session. So I would like to thank each and every one who gave me the opportunity to come and sit in this class, in this session today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ebony, for sharing. Lachey wanted to share.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lachey. I'm a student at the university. I just wanted to join to, you know, further grasp what all is going on my campus. and to just support flamingos.
You're welcome. And I'm a fellow Mingo myself, so you're in good company. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. This is Llewellyn Curling. I usually don't have much to say, but I saw the email and I was interested in the topic. I am doing some work in education, developing programs and so on. So I'm curious to hear what Dr. Smith has to say.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Mr. Curling.
You're welcome.
We have 1 more minute for icebreaker. Anyone else? Okay, I guess everyone else is fine. So we will move on to the introduction of our speaker. Brian, are you ready? You're on mute.
I'm ready as can be.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Give me the word. Good afternoon. Dr. Rodney Smith, a Bahamian educated in the Bahamas and in the United States. He has served in several senior administrative leadership positions in K through 12, public education and tertiary education, including Senior Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, President of Ramapo College in New Jersey, and the Premier Public Library Arts College of New Jersey, the last president of the College of the Bahamas, the first president of the University of the Bahamas, the National Multi-Campus University System of the Bahamas. Dr. Smith previously served as founder, psychologist of School of Psychology Services in the Ministry of Education, helping to create the Bahamas Defense Force and the College of the Bahamas. He studied at Harvard University and served as program coordinator for Harvard's Institute of Educational Management. Dr. Smith received his doctorate of education degree from Harvard University Graduate School of Education in the area of administration, planning, and social policy. His dissertation is entitled Political Administrative Factors Associated with Decentralization and Recentralization in Education Bureaucracy, the Case of Commonwealth of the Bahamas. He also earned a master's degree in education and central concentration in international development from Harvard University as a Master of Arts degree from Fisk University in clinical educational psychology and a bachelor's in psychology from St. John's University, Collegeville, Minnesota. Dr. Smith served as Dean of the Graduate College of Hampton University and the Vice President positions, including Student Affairs, Administrative Services, and International Planning. He served as Director of Strategic Planning and Professor in the PhD program in Educational Management, teaching a course entitled Strategy and Strategic Planning. Dr. Smith's previous portfolio included institutional effectiveness, continuous improvement, service training programs, assessment of all academic and non-academic programs, university athletics, Division I, NCAA, internal auditor, and Office of Institutional Research, operational analysis and research, and all aspects of enrollment management. He is the recipient of 2016 JCN International Person of the Year Award and led the University of the Bahamas in being one of 6 institutions globally in being recipient of Illusion Impact Award for significant advancement in the use of technology. He also has been inducted into Chi Alpha Epsilon Academic Honor Society, Alpha Chi, Chapter, Omicron, Delta Kappa, the National Leadership Honor Society, and Delta Mu Delta National Honor Society in Business Administration. Dr. Smith has participated in several professional development institutes and currently serves on the board of National Arts Gallery of the Bahamas National Trust, and American Association of State Colleges and Universities, headquartered in Washington University. Dr. Smith is married to the lovely Christiana Smith, an academic administrator, an author, and former dean. They have 2 adult children, Samantha, a practicing physician in Blacksburg, Virginia, and Sean, a luxury real estate developer in Florida and the Bahamas. I present to you Dr. Smith.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. I noticed that my internet was just weak there for a second, and I hope that you are able to hear me this evening, and there will be no interruptions. This evening's topic is Education for the 21st Century, a New Norm, Flexible Learning Pathways. In September of 2019, the issue of the magazine Trusteeship, published by the Association of Governing Boards of Universities and Colleges, authors James B. Hunt and Javed Siddiqui wrote that colleges and universities nationwide are grappling with a wide variety of challenges and disruptors. They added that perhaps the most pressing issue facing higher education is the need to prepare students to succeed and prosper in the global knowledge-based economy of the 21st century. In the October 25th, 2021 issue of Global Government Forum, Permanent Secretary at the UK Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, Sarah Mundy, said that civil service leaders should not expect workplaces to return to pre-pandemic norms and must instead embrace innovations made over the last 20 months. Members of the audience, according to Microsoft, there will be 6.2 million job openings in cloud-based technologies by 2022. And 77% of students will need tech skills by the year 2030. Throughout its 47 short years of existence, the College of the Bahamas, now University of the Bahamas, has been marked by tides of change. It was the change associated with majority rule, leading up to independence, that brought about the need to provide universal education for the building of a nation. Thus, the establishment of public secondary schools and the College of the Bahamas. It was the need for change associated with national development that brought about the transformation of the college into a university. These changes, however, were planned and effectively executed. In more recent times, we have had change thrust upon us, first through devastation brought about by Hurricane Dorian, resulting from climate change, followed by catastrophic health and economic impacts brought on by a global pandemic. Globally, societies must embrace change by necessity while creating change for sustainability. The need for a major paradigm shift was initially stimulated by the need to address climate change, then by the need to adapt to a new environment, a new direction in the delivery of education brought on as a result of the global pandemic. These disruptors, along with significant advances in technology and artificial intelligence, have triggered what is now being referred to as the fourth industrial revolution. Unfortunately, many societies are attempting to maintain the education delivery system that was created in the 1800s at the time of an earlier industrial revolution. In the June 29, 2020 issue of University World News, the opening article was entitled, "Experimentation in Higher Education Must Become the Norm," written by Dara Melnick and Daniel Kontowski. The authors began the article as follows, and I quote, "Not all universities will survive the COVID-19 crisis. Many niche institutions will alter their models to stay afloat. Other vulnerable higher education institutions without effective safety nets may downsize, consider mergers, or declare bankruptcy. New institutions with new solutions will come to replace them." The authors went on to add, "We have seen something similar before. In the 1960s and 1970s, the wave of experimental higher education institutions offered new models and practices, which mainstream higher education could not ignore. This is how problem and project-based learning, student-centered education, and individualization became the norm. Now, universities have come to the point when they cannot do anything else but innovate. To succeed without betraying their values, they need new solutions." Last year this time, Henry Stover, president of the Association of Governing Boards, sent the following words to trustees and university presidents. "Transformative change and innovation are no longer optional for colleges and universities. They are imperative." Stover said that survival and long-term sustainability and prosperity hinge on the capacity and capability of colleges, universities, and their leadership to take action now to adapt to and overcome the many challenges facing them. If you have been following the many institutional mergers, sales, and acquisitions around the world over the past 20 months, you see that all of these warnings have been and continue to be valid. Global pandemics come along only once in a lifetime, every 100 years or so. Such global events initiate the kind of change that propels the world forward into a newly defined paradigm. This means that today's academicians, as learning facilitators, have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, an opportunity to be a part of redefining, reimagining, and re-envisioning the future of education delivery for generations to come. Today, colleges and universities around the world are facing enrollment challenges. Some of these challenges are due to declining applications, while others are due to fears associated with returning to learning face-to-face in the classroom. At the K through 12 level, some parents are opting to keep their children at home, while others are unable to provide and or supervise the child's virtual learning activities. These challenges, however, are also creating new opportunities to address the need to further evolve and transform while maintaining values and traditions. Our academic and training institutions, though challenged, must seize the opportunity to evolve as well. Academic institutions must initiate an economic paradigm shift, helping and leading the country in addressing transition and transformation through digitization, including online and expanded modular skills training. There must be significant expansion of online degree offerings, global partnerships, dual enrollments with colleges and universities, regionally, nationally, and globally. We must initiate innovative strides in the delivery of skills training, creating a niche while becoming more attractive regionally and globally. In order to create this niche, we must work collaboratively across disciplines while engaging in new research, focusing on the delivery of teaching and extension services, providing solutions to current day community needs that may not even have existed before March of 2020. As we adjust to this new environment, we must adhere to a model of research that creates the expansion of new certifications along with graduate and professional studies, particularly as new technological and artificial intelligence specializations are created based on innovations for the 21st century. Over the past 20 months, Our focus has been on a return to what we have described as getting back to normal. I ask that you stop trying to go backwards. There is no getting back to normal. It is time to focus on now and what we create for the future of higher education in the 21st century. On the many young children who have missed almost 2 years of education, I say that all the remedial education in the world will not make up for the 2 years, for the missed 2 years in their social, educational, and mental development. It is time that we come to understand that we must embrace problem and project-based learning, student-centered education, and individualization. We must embrace the use of flexible learning pathways across all levels. This alone will be the 21st century key to providing equal access to education for all. This past summer, at a forum organized by UNESCO, International Institute for Educational Planning, IIEP, where 85 countries participated, the IIEP launched Sustainable Development Goal number 4, planning for flexible learning pathways in higher education, to support efforts to promote equity and lifelong learning opportunities for all by investing in flexible higher education systems. The UNESCO definition of flexible learning pathways is the creation of entry points and re-entry points at all ages and across all educational levels. Strengthened links between formal and non-formal structures and recognition, validation, and accreditation of the knowledge, skills, and competencies acquired through non-formal and informal education. Martin and Furive, in a June 2021 UNESCO paper, wrote that the unprecedented COVID-19 crisis has accelerated change, but it has also shown the limits of higher education systems to deal flexibly with needed transformation. It is my position, regardless of majors, that all students in preparation for the 21st century must be required to complete a computer information systems course and learn how to work and create in augmented virtual environments within the first year of studies. Academicians are being challenged to develop more interinstitutional partnerships, especially through technological avenues. They have been challenged to reach out to colleagues around the world, creating virtual study abroad opportunities, and create co-faculty teaching opportunities with other colleges and universities in other countries and around the world. They have been challenged to envision engagement in more faculty and student exchange opportunities, either online, using virtual reality and augmented reality, and yes, in person. In this new environment, this fourth industrial revolution, we must challenge ourselves to explore widespread use of virtual labs across all grade levels as we prepare a new generation of productive citizens for the world. At the post-secondary level, we must create internships through business and industry, subsequently redefining and increasing the numbers of opportunities for faculty and students nationally, regionally, and globally to learn and grow in this new era. This new era, the fourth industrial revolution. In conclusion, beginning now and over the next several months and years, we will see a transformation of educational systems around the world. There will be an increased emphasis on individualized learning through the use of artificial intelligence. As we increase the use of technology to allow our students to learn at their pace, under the supervision of learning facilitators, we will see a blurring of the lines between the grade level systems that were created in the 1800s, what some have called a factory model approach to the delivery of education. We will see systems with more flexible learning pathways that will allow young children to absorb more knowledge and information at a much faster pace than the traditional face-to-face delivery mode. We will also see more adults taking advantage of the use of flexible learning pathways. They will maximize the use of acquired knowledge, formally and informally, while attaining new knowledge through either supervised or unsupervised use of artificial intelligence. Through all of these learning pathways, the evaluation of the acquisition of new knowledge will be completed instantaneously and automatically, meaning that students will no longer need to wait for midterm evaluations or end of semester grading. This 21st century approach to the acquisition of new knowledge at all levels must be embraced, and in truth has already been embraced across sectors and systems around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the fourth industrial revolution, the age of technology and artificial intelligence. I now borrow a phrase and say thank you for allowing me the privilege of your time.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. That was a very informative presentation. Before we get to our Q&A session, we would just ask everyone to turn on their cameras very quickly so we could do a quick snapshot photo for our social media platforms. The icebreaker was painful. No one wanted to turn on their camera or speak, but now that we're in the middle of the session and everybody's warmed up, we can now have those cameras on for a quick picture. They're coming on. Nice to see you, Kenny.
Nice to be here.
Okay, we're gonna give them 5 more seconds, those who want to be on camera. Mr. Jack's full head is on the screen today, so give Mr. Jack's a round of applause for getting that camera positioning right today. You're muted.
Good things happen sometimes.
I know, I just like to mess with you. You always have half a head on the screen, so now that we have full face, that's a good thing. So I think this is all who are going to turn on their cameras. So Omar, are you ready to take that shot?
Yes, ma'am. So 1, 2, 3. And I got it. Thank you very much,
You got
everyone.
1 or you got 2? You got a backup?
I have 1 and I just saved it.
Okay, I guess that's a good one. He only needs 1. He's a professional photographer today. Okay, so we're going to move into our question and answer section. I know you guys have a lot of questions for Dr. Smith today. I heard a lot about artificial intelligence, and that's the way that education is moving. Kenny, you always have a lot of questions, so we're going to start with you. So Kenny, you're up.
Thank you. You know, I was burning for a question. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for a great presentation. I have I guess, a pre-question before I ask my real question. So is there a global body for education or some consensus as to educational standards?
There are actually several bodies, associations that are considered global or international. And it depends really on the origin of the association, for instance. I'm a member of one association that just focuses on public higher education. I'm on that board of directors, but there are other global, there's the organization that I referenced earlier in terms of university world education. That's another organization that reports on what's happening all around the world in different countries as well. If you'd like, I can provide the link for that so you can actually access that information as well.
Okay. And thank you. And the reason I asked that is because so a part of our education system, I question as to what we are learning or students are learning, if it's truly preparing them for the future. But it seems a lot of times that what we learn in school is just to prepare us for the next stage or to get us into a college or whatever have you. So even though changes are happening, sometimes persons are forced to, schools are forced to conform because they can't just do something revolutionary in their own environment because it would jeopardize students from getting to a next level or to getting to another institution. So I was wondering, even though this pandemic brought a lot of change, how can that change be brought about if everybody isn't on the same page per se? So that being my question.
Well, I don't know if when you say everybody on the same page, you're talking about the educators, the leaders, or you're talking about the students in the classroom?
Speaking more about the institutions, meaning naturally, if a particular school does something, their own curriculum, if it doesn't match up with the next stage, then you're kind of wasting your time more or less doing that, and actually would be handicapping the student from even going further.
Yes, and this is I participated in that forum, the Institute for International Educational Planning, over the summer. There were 85 countries represented. The forum came about as a result of 8 case studies being done in different countries all around the world, looking at how education systems were exploring how to provide access to education within the country. This is why I have been speaking so much about flexible learning pathways, because this is how I learn what's going on all around the world and how other countries are actually embracing the change. If you go online and you look up a company called EON Reality, E-O-N Reality, this is a leading company for augmented virtual reality teaching in the entire world. This is the company that also provides all kinds of simulators, all kinds of 4D experiences, with the opportunity to increase the acquisition of new knowledge by students as well as adults. This is what's happening all over the world. It's happening very, very strongly in a country like Singapore, for instance. It's happening throughout Europe. It's happening in China. It's happening in Japan, in South Korea as well. It's happening on a limited level in the United States, but it's happening all the same. People are experimenting with how to use artificial intelligence to increase the pace of acquisition of knowledge. Now, let me give you an example. I talked about the fading of the line between different grade levels. When you begin to focus on teaching a child and allowing that child to move and learn at their pace, they're going to move faster, they're going to learn quicker, they're going to absorb more information. And some children, if you have 20 children in a classroom and they're each learning at their pace, you're going to find that the entire class will move faster in terms of acquisition of knowledge and information. But you will see that some will excel beyond others. And some will actually excel into the next grade level, what we call grade levels. But keeping in mind that if we're going to embrace this fourth revolution, industrial revolution, we have to begin to move away from the system, the factory-like system that was created in the 1800s, which is having a teacher in the front of the class and having the 20 students and thinking that they're all going to be learning the information at the same time because it's coming from one person to all of them at the same time. That's not how individuals learn. Individuals are going to learn at their pace. So as in the years to come, we will see more and more of that individual learning taking place using artificial intelligence. But we will also see that some students move faster than others, acquire information faster than others. Some people acquire slowly, but they're going to be acquiring all the same. And you're not going to be trying to measure all students' acquisition of knowledge the same way all the time. If that makes sense.
Yes, sir. And you kind of transitioned to my last question, in that if persons can acquire knowledge at their own pace, do you see them still keeping students within that same age frame, whereas a student not able to leave school until 16, 18, etc.?
You're going to see, we're going to see that as the lines blur between the different grade levels, you're going to see the same thing we see in many professional and graduate schools now, where students are using simulators to learn. A lot of medical students actually take their exams online. A lot of medical students listen to their lectures online and do their practical work using augmented virtual reality as well. A lot of engineers, people, everything from brain surgery to repairing jet engines are first done using augmented virtual reality before they actually touch the jet engine or before they touch a human body. They use simulators first. And using a 3D or a 4D simulator, what's interesting is that it's easy for anyone to actually begin exposing themselves to artificial intelligence. You might have heard about Oculus Quest 2. I strongly recommend that folks get Oculus. I strongly recommend it. And as a matter of fact, recently a mother as a 5-year-old the child came home and said he wants the Oculus for Christmas, 5 years old. And so she called me and she said, what do you think I should do? Should I get it? I said, definitely get it, because you will be giving your child a head start. If he wants the Oculus, get it for him. You're giving him a head start. You can study anything. You can purchase any course. You can study any major using augmented virtual reality, and you can begin with the Oculus. One of the program, I have an Oculus. Every member of my family has an Oculus, every one of them. And one of the things that I came to enjoy recently, and it's a free software, is floating around and trying to master what it's like to be weightless on the International Space Station. So I can do that. So you can, the good thing about using augmented virtual reality is that some of the things I talked about in my speech in terms of being able to co-teach classes, travel to different parts of the world, even though it's in virtual reality, but actually talk to other people at the same time in real time and be experiencing the same thing as well.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and thank you, Andrea.
Now,
Andrea, sorry, I have a question. If you don't mind, I have a comment and a question. So, Dr. Smith, thank you very much for that stimulating provocation. But I have a challenge to all of us to ask. And you did reference the fact that we're stuck in the 18th century as far as our educational system is concerned. The question is, are we prepared to define who is the teacher and who is the student? Because technology has completely challenged that mythology. Because the younger generation, in fact, the infant who touches a computer device, learns that device without any instruction or intervention from an adult. And that child ends up being the teacher to the adults. So if that is true, and I'm sure you've heard of this experiment that was done, I think in India first, where they simply place computer devices in the most rural setting that you could think of, where people were told they were literally illiterate and couldn't comprehend knowledge at all. In 6 months, they found young kids using the device, doing calculus without a teacher at all. So the question is, who is the teacher and who is the student? I think we need to debunk that mythology that the teacher is someone who supposedly has knowledge, because all of us have knowledge and all can gain knowledge. You made some interesting reference. I would also challenge everyone to look up Singularity University. That is a university that emerged from Google. And the guy who was one of the leaders in that institution is a guy who wrote a book called The Singularity is Here or Near. Ray Kurzweil. fascinating what is going on around us in the world as far as education is concerned. And I think if we're prepared to debunk who is the teacher and who is the student, I think we will go a long way with defining what is education and who learns and how they learn. And I just put that out there as a thought, just to get your take on what an institution like Singularity, for example, is already doing around the world.
I totally agree with you, Mike. You know, it's interesting. I visited the Google campus in New York a couple of years ago, and I spent a few hours with some of the young people who are in their 20s, by the way. And this group of young people travel around the country from university to university, assessing where universities were in the teaching of technology, use of technology. And they concluded that most universities are anywhere from 15 to 20 years behind because of where technology is, where artificial intelligence has advanced to. Because we still use the same methods of teaching that we knew, the systems that we grew up in, we continue, I believe, in many instances, to frustrate our students because our students were born in the age of technology. That's why our students know so much more about the technology than we do. The internet did not become public until about 1981, 82. It was in existence before that, used by the military. But in 1981, 82, it became more for public use. Smartphones. Our kids are growing up with a smartphone in their pocket and knowing how to use a smartphone and how to do research. When we were growing up, we had to go to the computer lab, to the supercomputer to get our data cards analyzed and to analyze the data and to put it together for us using the numbers and the dashes, et cetera, the ones and the zeros. But this is a totally different generation. And unless we begin to adjust our systems to how this generation in the fourth industrial revolution are absorbing new knowledge at the rate they're absorbing new knowledge, they are going to get frustrated. They are going to get frustrated, and they're going to come and they're going to say, look, what you're teaching me, I've already checked it out online. I've already read all of that stuff. I could actually follow your lecture by going in my cell phone and looking up the same topic. So what we have to do, we have to become creative. We have to become more innovative, because the fact of the matter is, and I quoted several persons who said, we have no choice but to innovate. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the institution is going to become outdated. The method of education delivery is going to become outdated. But what I'm talking about this evening really is the transformation across all education levels, not just in higher education, mind you. It has to happen from the very beginning. The young people are ready for it. The world is ready for it. We have to embrace it. We have to embrace this evolution.
So question, just as a speculation, what do you think will happen if we don't? Because technology doesn't care.
Technology will continue to move.
Yes.
If we don't embrace the technology and we don't start to teach our children in a different way, and blur the lines between the teacher and the student, and we all become learners, if we don't embrace it that way, and that's why I kept referring to the term facilitators of learning as opposed to the teacher, because the facilitator of learning is also the learner as well in the process.
Exactly.
So if we don't embrace it, we are not going to be globally competitive. We're not even going to be regionally competitive, because we will maintain a system of education delivery that the rest of the world is pushing to the side.
Yeah.
Now,
I suspect so myself. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
now, Dr. Smith, a question. If the educational systems have to evolve, they would take more of a focused approach, making, I guess, curriculum a lot smaller than what they currently are. Now, to that point that you're making, that education can be accessed somewhere, there would be another industry that would have to evolve the way that they think, and it would have to be the hiring industries, the companies themselves, because then if education is so accessible, the need or probably the idea of having a degree may not be necessary, because I can prove I have those skill sets.
That's correct. That's what I meant by the informal and formal acquisition of knowledge, because you can go online and teach yourself anything. That's, I mean, you can everything from YouTube videos to whatever you can teach yourself. Now the interesting thing is,
go ahead.
the company that I mentioned to you, Eon Reality, is based in France, and they have every single area of study, every single grade level that's already available to be taught through artificial intelligence. Those things are already done. All courses, anything you need to learn, like I said, from repairs of jet engines to doing surgeries, anything at all, or to even a grade level, grade 1 level or whatnot, moving up. So if we're in the Bahamas, you've heard that the government is interested in its 10-point plan of creating these specialized charter schools, one on technology, for instance, one on fine and performing arts, etc. We need to probably go a little bit step beyond that. I would say it would be important to begin to introduce the use of artificial intelligence by having a pilot program at every grade level, or at every either primary, middle school, secondary level, or even at every grade level, so that you invest the money in the technology and the artificial intelligence, and you compare that group with the group that's still learning using the 1800s format. And you're going to see a huge difference. But you're never going to be able to go back. You cannot take that pilot group and send them back into the classroom, because their brains would have already been advanced beyond that.
And
Okay,
so that's what we need.
Simone had a hand up.
Sorry.
Wow. Where did she go, Simone? Okay, we can't hear you, Simone. Are you still on mute? Okay, we're not getting sound from Simone. Mr. Curling, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I had a question, Dr. Smith. Interesting discussion that's going on, and information today is so readily available at everybody's fingertips that, you know, the kids today, I mean, they gather so much knowledge that it took me when I was in college weeks, maybe months to go to this library, the next library, and find that they don't have it. I go somewhere else, and they have it at their fingertips, you know, readily, and they get so much knowledge. Now the thing is, I'm wondering, what is that going to do for assessment? How are we going to be able to assess these the level of knowledge effectively? I don't know. The answers are right there, and so how are we going to know? I just want your opinion on it. How are we going to know that they actually learned something from us? You know, the lecturers, the professors.
Yeah, let me give you an example of the use of artificial technology where students are learning at their own pace. Several years ago, probably more than 10 years ago now, maybe 15, around 10 years ago, Virginia Tech, Virginia University of Technology and Science and Technology, they purchased a mall. They purchased a mall that had this huge space about the size of a Walmart. And they redesigned, they cleared an entire building out, and they redesigned the entire building to have all of these different computer stations. They had about 4 stations to one circular area so that students could not see each other, but they were sitting there. And then they hired graduate students to become learning facilitators. And the graduate students, actually all they did was go from one station to the next to see how students were learning. What Virginia Tech did was they required all of their freshmen to do their math classes, to learn at their own pace, to learn math, to learn calculus and everything else on the computer. But the interesting thing is that the way it was assessed, or it is assessed, is that students cannot move to the next level, just like a game. Students cannot move to the next level until they successfully passed all of the items at one level. And that's how the grading takes place. That's how the evaluation of new knowledge takes place. That system is so effective, and I've been talking about that for years. You know how hard it is for a lot of students to learn math. Some students learn math easily, some don't. This system goes back to what I was talking about, where students are learning at their own pace, to the point where it's open 24 hours a day. So students don't have to go to a classroom to sit in the front of a teacher, but rather students are going on those systems. They are spending hours in this math lab where they're learning everything they need to learn. They move at their own pace. Some students actually they have a cafeteria in there. They have couches where students can go and take a nap and then get up and continue working. Some students go in on Friday night and come out on a Sunday night.
Would that mean that at the end of the course, all students are successful and would they get different grades, or everyone will get an 8?
No, all students are successful, but what they're doing is they're learning individually at their own pace.
On pace.
So once they complete all of the various levels in the math, and keep in mind too, that the graduate assistants are there monitoring the whole process. So even so, a student has to probably, I've to say to the grad assistant, I'm finished this level, now I need to sign into another level. So it's not like you finish a level and you automatically move to the next level. That's what the facilitators are for, to sign and sign you on to the next level. It's important to math in particular is one area that, you know, when we were in school, we'd say that the best way to do math is you practice, you practice, you practice, you practice. And this form of teaching, this form of learning, the acquisition of knowledge, allows the student to learn at their own pace or to even increase their pace, but not be penalized for other students who cannot learn faster, but gives every single student the opportunity to have access to this knowledge, but to learn it at their pace. Students, what you will find students in this math lab going back, getting tired of trying to figure something out, taking a break, take a nap, come back and continue again, but they're learning at their pace. And this is what's going to happen with education in this new industrial revolution, this fourth industrial revolution. I don't think that teachers will become extinct. I believe that teachers will develop an advanced role in helping students to acquire new knowledge, because in many instances, this knowledge will be created by the teachers or help to create this new knowledge by the teachers. But then the technologists and folks who specialize in artificial intelligence will put that information into the system so that students could learn on their own pace. I strongly recommend, I mean, I'm not getting paid by Eon Reality, but I strongly recommend that you check out some of their YouTube things that they have on the market, have an introduction. I have to tell you that there's a graph in one of the YouTube videos for this company that shows comparison to the increased use of technology as of 2020 and 2021, skyrocketing beyond the use of technology in all previous years. Smartphones, computers, and everything else, there's just a steady move. And then when it gets to 2021, there's this spike. And that's what's happening now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Curlin. I think that answered your question. So we're now on to Lachey.
Hi, I don't know if I missed it, but do you think we'd be able to move beyond virtual reality anytime soon? Because, you know, even though as students we're getting used to the technology side of schooling, we're still kind of missing the aspect of where we can come in physically and actually learn instead of getting distracted by things that happen at home.
I'm sorry, I had some interruption. Could you repeat the question?
Do you think that we'd be able to move beyond virtual reality? As students, even though we were getting used to being at home and learning, there's still the instance that we desire to get back on the campus into the physical classes because we gotten used to that aspect, and there are so many distractions at home, you know? So do you think we'll move beyond this?
Yeah. In terms of the virtual or remote teaching that's taking place right now, I think that once the pandemic passes, it's safe for people to be in face-to-face environments. You're going to see the creation of hybrid environments. You're going to see some students want to go to classes and be face-to-face, and some students do not want to be. You're going to find that there will be an increase, and this is in short term, an increase in the use of interactive classrooms. I know that at the University of the Bahamas, we are in the process right now of creating interactive classrooms so that some students who want to stay online and some students want to come to class and do face-to-face. But at the same time, that's just one of the steps that's happening now in this move, as I mentioned, toward this new era. So I don't think we're ever going to go back to what it used to be. I don't think you're going to find many institutions or organizations going back to what things used to be. I'll give you an example. More of us now are attending conferences virtually because we can pay registration fees, but we don't have to pay for hotels. We don't have to pay for travel. And the numbers of persons participating in international conferences has gone up tremendously. We can have meetings with people anywhere from any part of the world. Last week before last, I've been having meetings with Dr. Sareem, who's the Executive Vice President of the University of the Bahamas. We've been having meetings with faculty members from the University of Florence. We meet with people from the University of Malta. So in terms of meeting people, in terms of creating relationships, all of that now is at our fingertips. I attend board meetings every single week for the American Association of State Colleges and Universities virtually. And there are 3 university presidents who are on that board, and we attend virtually every week. I'm going to be attending a conference next month in Clearwater, Florida, but I'll be attending virtually, and some people will be attending in person. So the world is now open to us because of the use of technology. So for us to go back to say, you know, we're going to return to what it was before, that's not going to happen. It's not going to. We've learned too many things in the past 20 months. Look at us right now. We're not sitting in an auditorium. We're able to sit and talk with each other, ask questions, and associate with each other. In the future, some of us will be sitting in the auditorium. Some of us will be on the screen.
Okay, Omar, I think you're up next.
Dr. Smith, you did mention that you are already implementing a type of that new type of education within the University of the Bahamas. What, or is this just a small experiment to see the effectiveness of this, or well, and tied to that, what methodology or how are you implementing this?
Well, what we're implementing right now is the interactive classroom, where a faculty member can interact with students either virtually or in person, but it's the same lesson, the same information, and students might be at home or in another country. Right now, we have students from in France as well as Canada, and I think, yeah, one in France, 2 out of Canada. But we have students, and we have faculty members, by the way. Many of our faculty members have returned to their home countries. So we have faculty members who have been teaching for the past 20 months virtually from 5 different continents. So this is, you know, one of the things we've done is to now create a new application for faculty members. Faculty members who are going to teach only online, but they're able to stay home in the country and teach online full time. It saves the university money, I mean, a lot of money. It saves us from having to pay for a work permit as well. And saves the faculty member from having to change countries and change housing. So what we're implementing right now is the hybrid. We have one interactive classroom in existence now, and as Mr. Curling, Professor Curling could tell you, more on the line, we have the equipment, we purchased the equipment, and that's the level where we are now. But the next level we have to get to is the use of augmented virtual reality. Instead of purchasing $1 million worth of science equipment, we can have students in a technology lab that are watching the same thing, manipulating the same thing at the same time from anywhere around the world, or actually performing experiments in the lab, scientific experiments, but doing it through augmented virtual reality.
Okay, so thank you for that response. Simone, you are up.
Thank you, Andrea. I have 2 questions, Dr. Smith. The first question is related somewhat to what Lachey asked about the experience that students have when they're in person, having their education facilitated in person. Mine is coming more from the human element, those skills and mindsets that people need to function in today's world. We would refer to them as soft skills. I'm talking about mental health, social skills, resilience, being able to communicate, build relationships, to articulate their dreams and their future and their career. From my vantage point in human resources, I'd love to see where a young person could sit in an interview and not be terrified half to death or cry because they can't function in that capacity.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned that while technology is so very important, that it will not eliminate some human interaction, even as we interact online. There's still at that element of humanity that we cannot avoid. How does the educational system, or how can it assist students in that regard? That's my first question.
Yeah, let me address that as a psychologist or someone trained in clinical psychology. That is always something at the back of everyone's minds. But what's interesting I've found is that in augmented virtual reality, they have what are called practice sessions as well for speaking, for public speaking and all that sort of thing. But I think what you're talking about more is in line with social development, those soft skills, as you indicated. The fact that people in communicating with other also have to feel their presence, have to see their facial expression. You not always want to be looking at a photograph. This is something that I believe very strongly that as we move into this era of self-paced learning with artificial intelligence, that it's going to be important that the learning facilitators also implement those things like icebreakers that you did at the beginning of the session, or also have moments where, not moments, but times where students are required to interact with each other on a regular basis. I'll give you an example. When Tufts University was one of the first institutions to become completely wired for the internet, Tufts University. And so everybody was looking to see what was going to happen there. All other colleges and universities were trying to figure this out. What happened at Tufts University was that in the first year that students had access to the internet, the majority of students were staying in their rooms. The majority of students were just getting their food in the cafeteria and going back to their rooms. They were literally sending tens and hundreds of thousands of emails each day. And one of the concerns came out, how do we get these students out of their class, out of their bedrooms, and interact more with each other? So their Student Affairs Development Department created opportunities that required students to leave their rooms. And so that became a focus that helped the students to more completely develop as individuals, as persons, and learn how to interact with other people. So that's when you see these collaborative activities where students might have a problem to solve, but they're solving it as a group as opposed to solving it on their own. Because what happened at Tufts was, in that first year, students weren't coming out of their room. They were doing everything online. They were completely wired, and they had no reason to interact with each other whatsoever. And that's where, in terms of human development, that's where the learning facilitators, the adults, the teachers, the educators have to step up and make sure that those things are happening.
Great, thank you. And my second question is an organizational culture question related to your context, the University of the Bahamas, and how you're able to use technology and these other elements to enhance the student experience on the back end, not necessarily from the learning side, but from just their overall experience of being on campus, registering for classes, online payment for classes, that type of thing. How is that process evolving at the university?
Well, actually, the process evolved before the pandemic, before to remote teaching. When we, on March 15th, I think, we had the first case in the Bahamas, 20. And we went into lockdown mode on March 16th. And prior to that, however, the university had already started preparing for the possibility that this was going to happen. And so over that spring semester of 2020, our faculty members did revert to virtual teaching using different tools. The majority of our faculty members, I think most if not all, became certified online instructors that summer of 2020. But prior to that, the university started implementing Ellucian Banner, which is the most widely used data management system at colleges and universities around the world. We started implementing it in October of 2016. So all of our operations now can be done remotely, which is what we've been doing. I sit here every day and I might look like I have a nice backdrop behind me and everything else, but I'm actually at the dining room table. And it's a big dining room table, so I have paper spread out on both sides. But I've been in meetings from 9 o'clock this morning. And yesterday morning, I started at 7:30 with meetings. And I have one more event after this one at 8 o'clock tonight. And I'm sitting in the same chair, so I'm not moving around. And I meet with the vice presidents every day, and we deal with matters. And I receive correspondences and contracts, etc., to sign and return. So I have the scanner right next to me, and I have software that sends all the information to the scanner, prints it out, and I sign it, and then I scan it back. So I'm not moving. We're able to transfer funds right through, I can transfer funds from one bank to the next for university operations, right from where I'm sitting. This is because all of our data is stored in the cloud. And this is because all of our operations could be done remotely from anywhere we are in the world, just by using the VPN for security and accessing bank accounts and everything else. So that's how we have been working, and that's how we have been keeping the university moving forward. Now, do we all like doing this all the time? No. All of us find that working remotely, working virtually, we work harder, we work longer, and we get a whole lot more done than if we were working in our offices. So I suspect very, very strongly that we're going to see a hybrid working environment in the future. Days when I need to be in the office to have courtesy calls or meetings with individuals, visitors coming to campus, I will get dressed and I will go to the office. Days when I have a lot of meetings that I could do virtually, that's how I will do those meetings. There will be times when we have hybrid meetings as well, either hybrid board meetings or hybrid administrative council staff meetings, where some people will be in the boardroom and others will be on the screen. So we're not going back to what it used to be, but I think we've found more ways to be more efficient and more effective, and believe it or not, to maintain our mental health in a lot of ways too.
All right, thank you for that response. Ebony, you have your hand raised.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, my question was, do you think the educational institutions in the Bahamas fail to prepare students early on for the development of digital skills and capabilities prior to the new learning approach? Reason I asked was because I remember you said that, technology and the digital skill world is advancing every day. It is evolving. And my real question is, if we in the Bahamas and the educational institutions would have, teach students earlier, as in, let's say from primary school up until, college grade, would we be more prepared as to, just starting to prepare us now, since it's, COVID came around and we can't come outside in reference to that?
Yeah, I mentioned in my presentation earlier that these kinds of global pandemics serve to propel societies globally to the next level. So we are actually being propelled out of one industrial revolution and into another right now. So what we're going through in the Bahamas in terms of adapting is simultaneously being experienced by every country around the world. Some countries have taken the initiative to move faster. I'll give you an example. A lot of countries, UK included, recently announced that they have developed a high-level AI advisory committee to the government, artificial intelligence committee. We have some countries that, China included, Japan included, that they want to be known as the hub of artificial intelligence for the world. Everybody knows that this is the area to move into. So some countries are actually moving very, very quickly. Singapore is another one that's moving very, very rapidly, to the point where they are individualizing the education of their children, so that their children are learning very, very quickly, but they're absorbing the knowledge at the rate that they could absorb that knowledge. The countries, as I mentioned earlier, countries that do not embrace the change, do not embrace this evolution, are the ones that are going to be further and further and further behind. To say we made a mistake, I wouldn't say that we made a mistake to say that we failed our children. I don't say we failed our children. I say that we have to join the rest of the world in bringing our children up to par, or making sure our children stay on par with the rest of the world.
Okay, on that note, I have a question. Being involved in so many different international organizations and having conversations with persons all over the world, and you have a global perspective on where the world is as far as education and technology, do you feel the Bahamas is 10 steps behind everyone else in the world?
I don't know if I could make that assessment to say 10 steps behind everyone else in the world. And I say that because I know for a fact that students who graduate from the University of the Bahamas and they go to other countries, or they work in other countries, or they visit other countries, or students who do study abroad programs, they are farther ahead in terms of their knowledge attainment in their specific area than most other people. We've had students do study abroad programs from UB who came back home and told me they were so nervous about going, they didn't know whether they could, compete with the other students. And guess what? They came back home with all A's and extremely self-confident. We've had students, and one of the reasons that this happens is because University of the Bahamas teaches, if we look at years, say look at 4 years for college, if we look at the years, University of the Bahamas is 1 year ahead of most other colleges and universities. That's why students who transfer after we have parents who still say they want their child to go to UB to get a solid foundation, and then they're going off to another school. If I encourage parents to let your child finish their bachelor's degree, undergraduate degree, and then pick whatever Ivy League school they want to go to for graduate and professional training. They can do it because they're ready to do it. That's why when our students who are at their bachelor's degree, with their students after 2 years leave and go off to another university, the professors already recognize that those students have completed their junior level, their 3rd year of work already. And that's why our Bahamian students tend to be teaching assistants at what's supposedly the junior year. They've already done that work. The same thing applies to our students in accounting. Do you know that the University of the Bahamas has the highest passing rate for the CPA at the bachelor's level when students take it for the first time? The highest time passing rate than all of the universities in our region, including in Florida. And our students take the CPA after the bachelor's degree because they've already finished most of that graduate work. In the United States, you have to get an MBA before you take the CPA. You see?
Okay, so on the topic of MBA, not to cut you off, but I have a burning question and we're running out of time. On the topic of MBA, we know that you're making modifications for your students, but are you also making modifications for the requirements for your teaching faculty, or are you still requiring your professors to have an MBA in order to even be considered to teach at the University of the Bahamas?
Actually, we require our faculty members, new hires, and this has been happening now for the past several years. They must have a terminal degree in their specialty area. And for most faculty members, that's a doctorate degree. For someone in fine and performing arts, it would be the Master of Fine and Performing Arts, or Fine Arts, Master of Fine Arts, MFA. But we really now hire people with an MBA unless it's a part-time faculty member to teach a course. But in terms of full-time employment at the university as a professor, for the past several years, we have only been hiring people with terminal degrees, PhDs, or EDD.
Okay, so question for you again. I'm knocking this nail, right? Education has evolved. right? And especially in the project management profession. I only can speak for project managers because that's what I have my certifications in. I got my bachelor's degree from the University of Bahamas, so I'm not going to knock my alma mater. I appreciate my education from the University of Bahamas. But I've found that pursuing an MBA in this field is not a requirement for me to excel. Like, we're more certification generated to prove our skill sets. We, especially as a certified Scrum Master, which I am, you have different levels. So you have a certified Scrum Master, then you have an advanced certified Scrum Master, and you have all of these certifications, and they don't push us on the track of getting an MBA for employment. So if someone like me wants to aspire to teach at the University of Bahamas as a full-time professor, not a part-time professor, how would you treat my case to say, I don't have an MBA, but I have 20 certifications in my field?
Yeah, and this is why I said in my presentation that we have to introduce more flexible learning pathways. This is why I said that we have to do more certifications, because over time, for instance, what you could learn, what you could acquire, once you prove that you've acquired that information and you have the experience, you combine your experience with the acquisition of new knowledge, and you can prove that you can teach that. We have to evolve to the point whereby you can become a facilitator of learning, or a learning facilitator for students who are also learning at the pace that you're learning at, or that you learn at, because you know what it's about. So really, you know, when I say that the lines will become blurred between different grade levels, so to speak, the same thing has to happen in higher education. And that's what some of the authors I quoted were talking about, that higher education institutions have the greatest difficulty with evolving and transforming because of their inflexibility. And that's what we have to begin to change. That's what we have to begin to address. And it has to happen. We have you know, if we sit back and we let the world keep moving along, the fact of the matter is the world is not going to let us stand still. The fact of the matter is the world is not going to allow us to not create flexible learning pathways for its citizens.
So my next question, I read an article recently on LinkedIn from this gentleman who said that in second and third world countries, that the attainment of an MBA is not necessarily looked at as something that is valued, but more so for something for social status. And just to say, you know, and I struggled with this article, but I had to agree to some extent. And he was saying that it's only in the second and third world countries that we pursue master's degrees for social status and not to elevate ourselves as an individual. Would you agree with that statement?
I would, to an extent, but I would take it even further, that a lot of the things we do out of tradition. A lot of the things we do because in the eyes of other people, it is an elevation. But a lot of the things that we do for elevation or because of tradition, the people that we are imitating or we have imitated doing these things no longer do them. No longer do them. One of the things I hear all the time is that people are, sometimes you like to hear, sometimes we hear people say that, oh, we're going to be implementing best practice. And this was created, this practice or this method or whatever was created at Harvard or at MIT or whatnot. I had a rude awakening about best practices, because by the time something becomes best practice, it's totally outdated. And so when we talk about implementing best practices, we have to remind ourselves that This best practice that we're imitating, that was created quite a while back, is no longer a best practice. The people who, see, Harvard does not use any best practices. That's an institution which is about new knowledge, not a repetition of information. And so if you ever hear anybody saying that, oh, Harvard's going to introduce this program because it represents best practices, they'll say no. We create the best practices, but by the time it gets to you and you call it best practices, it's outdated.
Yes,
That's why at the University of the Bahamas, we need to innovate. There is no reason whatsoever why we cannot lead the world in innovating and coming up with methods of teaching and learning that the rest of the world want to say, oh, these are best practices from the University of the Bahamas. No reason to stop us.
Exactly. I totally agree with everything you've said, Dr. Smith, and I would just like to continue this conversation with you offline because you have my brain just ticking, and I want to talk to you about EduScrum and Agile and education and all of the very innovative things that I have picked up from associating with different organizations located around the world. And Agile and education is taking off. Agile has been around for over 20 years. And this community is trying its hardest to bring that awareness to the Bahamas that we are behind everyone else in our project management knowledge. Scrum has been around forever. Agile has been around forever. And these are terms that are new. And it shouldn't be new because we're trying to stay on the cutting edge. And I respect you as a visionary, a fellow visionary. And you have always appeared to me as somebody who can see what is needed in our country and you implement those changes. I just hope that you have that team that can support you and help you to excel. And I know that you will probably be transitioning from the university soon, but I would like to personally thank you for all of the contributions you have made. I saw the changes start from when I was leaving and you came in as on your first term of presidency, and I've followed you ever since. And if no one else have any other questions, I would like to turn it over to, is Jackie still here? Jackie? Okay, Jackie is still here to give our closing remarks and to thank our speaker.
Good night, everybody. Dr. Smith, we cannot thank you enough for the information and the knowledge that you have imparted to us. I mean, within this past hour, from talking about, we can hear your passion in AI, artificial intelligence, and being able to bring this into the classrooms, bring this into the Bahamas, and where this can be something that we need to grasp a hold of and to do it at a very early age. Also, your passion and your knowledge about transitioning into hybrid environments, not only in education, but also in the way that we just do things now today. And so we want to thank you so much. We know that you are an extremely busy man, and for you to take this time and to come and to share with us, we are forever grateful, and we appreciate your time, your efforts, your knowledge. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.